Welcome to the Car, Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hattrick. Drive fast and try not to crash. Welcome to the Car, Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, and my very special guest, Andrew Marr. Good evening, Andrew. It's great to speak to you. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Now, we've named the show this week as Armchair Formula One Enthusiasts, because that's exactly what we are. And so tonight it's going to be all about the state of Formula One and also our favourite era of Formula One and how we think the drivers are coping, and what we think of them. Are they as exciting as they used to be? Who are the talents and who are the ones that we would rather see maybe do something else? But we're going to have good fun tonight, and to all our listeners, because this is a special podcast only, so it's a bonus feature, we are going to be talking about Formula One. Now, Andrew Marr, I thought I better not put any puns, because if I put Andrew Marr as a guest on my show, people are going to think I've managed to get through to the BBC. But so that will probably do a huge amount for my ratings. But
not that one. And Andrew Marr, not the Andrew Marr.
Can you put on a BBC accent, then we'll see what happens.
I suppose I need to do a sort of a slightly posh Edinburgh posh accent, haven't I? Really, if it's going to be the proper Andrew Marr, you've got to know a wee Scottish accent, but not a really good Scottish accent. Shut up. Shut up. It's offended the whole of Scotland. It is a Scottish name. My grandmother was Scottish. That's where it comes from. It's all. Yes. Shut up.
In terms of Formula One, you like myself have been following Formula One for many years, and you've seen a Grand Prix or two like myself, and you've met people like Jackie Stewart and David Coulthard, which is great because I think it's when you can actually meet Formula One racers, you really see what kind of people they are, and you see what a real kind of sportsman is. What is it that has attracted you to Formula One, and what makes you kind of like it so much?
It's a funny one because I know there's lots of people. Some people like racing, some people like the soap opera of it and stuff like that. I kind of like all of it. I'm a total nerd, so I love when people moan about there's too much technology in it. I think no, it's the pinnacle of motorsport. There's got to be technology. It's a technology race as well.
Yeah,
and that's interesting. The aerodynamics, that's interesting. Tyres, that's interesting. It's all interesting to me. But then you've got the human aspect of these people, these drivers, showing a skill, reflexes, an ability to see what they can do, a speed of thinking when they're doing an overtaking manoeuvre, at 200 miles an hour, using the brakes to get past someone like Ricard does all the time. So, yeah, you get the different cars, and there's lots of people always moaning about, they've got the fastest car. But still, seeing someone take the car they've got and getting the best out of it, that's fantastic. But then, of course, you get all the politics as well. It's like watching the best version of Big Brother sometimes. When you see them on the podium in that little room moaning at each other about what they did, it's all fascinating. I like it all. I like it all. Everything about it.
Yeah. I know people have been complaining that the racing maybe hasn't been as good this year. I mean, there's maybe been a few races where it wasn't brilliant. Maybe France wasn't great. But there's been, in the last 3 or 4 races at least, some fantastic battles. I mean, when Verstappen won in Austria, and then obviously when he won, where was it, in Germany. The German race was an incredible race at Hockenheim. What do you think? Do you think the racing has been quite good this year?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. Germany was an exciting race, but I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it was as great a race because so much of it was pot luck.
Yeah.
And what I saw, you didn't know who was going to win because, Hamilton's meant to be this great racer in the wet, and suddenly he's off the road. Of course, it was very entertaining because watching people slide over that.
Yeah, the kind of drag strip, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was fantastic. Just the comedy of it was great. And again, seeing how upset people like Leclerc got and this kind of thing when he crashed, that's all great. Silverstone for me was the race of the year.
Yes, that was a cracker.
Class, pure class from Hamilton, class from everybody. Everybody racing and doing well. The overtaking that was going on in places you don't normally overtake.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weather mixed it up, but they made the best of it. Absolutely superb. France was awful.
Yeah,
but that's the track. Why are they there?
Yeah, and it's a very strange track. You know, it has all those kind of blue and red and white lines everywhere. I thought it'd be quite difficult to see what the track is. You know, if you're traveling at 200 mile an hour, to kind of get your lines, because it's quite hard to see what's going on. And I don't think it's a great track.
Honestly, you know, it's nuts.
Yeah, I think it's also that they've had to put chicanes in because the straight was too long, and they reckoned the speeds would get too high. So they had to put in a chicane to kind of slow it down a bit.
I hate every time they slow the cars down. But what's that about? It's racing.
Yeah.
Slow the cars down. Why? I mean, you've got massive runoff areas now. You've got the safest cars we've ever had. Speed the cars up. Make it harder. Make it more difficult. Because until it's that hard to do, you don't see the differences between the drivers. You know, that's why you see someone doing really well in F3 and really well in F2, and then they get into Formula One and they can't do it. It's not that they can't do it. It's just that it's so hard. The differences are so small. There have to be bigger. There has to be something to show up who's really good and who isn't. You know, to bring to rise to the top.
Yeah. They always say that these cars are very difficult to drive, and I think, from a mere not everyday person, it's no, we have no idea what they're like. I mean, I remember driving a Formula Ford on a kind of race day type thing that you can turn up, you get for a birthday present, and if you walk away with four wheels on the car at the end of it, you're doing quite well, But and it's totally, and you think, oh yeah, I'm a racing driver, and then you realise that the guys that are really good are like 10 seconds a lap quicker or more, and it's like a 1 mile track, but. But
that amount of power. I mean, you sneeze and suddenly your back wheels are lit up, and you're doing a pirouette down the road, and you've hit something. It's like, what happened there?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get quite frustrated. We're both on similar sort of discussion groups, aren't we? And you get people who will come out with something like, "Oh, it's easy." Is it? No, it's not easy at all. I mean, I've never driven any single-seater car, but I've seen people do it. They get in for the first time and they stall it immediately. And then if they manage to, after 10 minutes, they manage to get it down the pit lane, and then they go to the first corner and they're off. Do you remember years ago they had on Top Gear, they had Richard Hammond had the red.
Yeah, that was a great piece of TV.
He's supposedly meant to be a really good driver.
Yeah.
Whether he is or not, I don't know. But he couldn't go fast enough to keep the heat in the tyres.
Yeah, yeah.
They're hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And so I even the worst driver in F1, people criticizing Kubica.
Yeah.
And I nearly said Grosjean, but he just likes to crash. Kubica is still going faster than I would ever go in that car.
Yeah.
And the guy's got one arm.
Yeah.
You've got to have respect for these people, whoever they are. To get into Formula One is an amazing thing. You are one of the 20 best and luckiest drivers in the world, and you're doing something that not many other people can do. So some respect's got to be thrown in their direction, no matter who they are.
Yeah, I think as well when Richard Hammond did that, he was in the Stowe circuit at Silverstone, which is a very, very short circuit. So it's designed with a lot of kind of slow corners and things. So I mean, if anything, to try and help keep heating the brakes and tyres, so that you're kind of you're getting the car going. But I think if you've been on the main circuit at Silverstone, it may have been maybe slightly easier because he's got faster corners, which would maybe help him get the heat in the tyres or more, perhaps.
Yeah, you could be right. Another thing I watched that was on Channel 4 was that Guy Martin thing.
Oh yeah, he drives it. Yeah.
But then he did another thing with DC not with DC, with Jenson Button, where he was driving an old Williams, wasn't it? Button was in a Williams, and he was in I think it was the last of the ground effects cars.
All right.
He had the problem of he wasn't going fast enough and wasn't getting enough heat into the brakes. But he's obviously a capable guy, and with more practice, he took him months and months and months to do it. but he did get to where he knew what he was doing enough to be able to keep the heat and do very well.
Yeah.
But then when Button got into the other car, it was like a different world. He just destroyed him.
No, because he knew what he was doing. That's the thing. I mean, they do this now. I've seen quite a few kind of YouTube people and kind of, the kind of gamers or the kind of the YouTube kind of car collectors that you see on TV at the moment. Don't know why that's come up. But he's still there, yep. And what it was, Renault did it for them. And they went to drive a Formula One car from 2012, so one of the last of the V8s. And I think they detune it slightly. But it's still an amazing car to drive. But some of them actually can do quite well. I'm amazed that they can keep the car going. They don't tend to spin it off, and they get up through the gears. But I think they're on tracks that are quite suited to the car. And obviously there's a lot of expertise going on in the team to kind of help people get going. So I think they make it easier to get the car initially started. So I think the clutch is automatic, or they have little things, and they certainly detune it by a couple of hundred horsepower. But even still, it's like 600, 700 horsepower.
So, in a 650 kilo car or something like that, then that's Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. It does look amazing, and I think that's what, as Formula One fans, we always kind of dream. That would be the thing, we always. I mean, I remember there used to be the adverts in the old Formula One magazines or Autosport and things, and it says "Drive a Formula One car," and it would cost about £2,000 for like 10 minutes over it. You'd have to go to Magny-Cours in France, and then you'd get a kind of a debrief, and then they'd get you in something else, and eventually you got like Jean Alesi's old Benetton, from 1995. The chances are someone had been killed in it the week before, on the same trip. So you'd be like, pay your money, take your chance. But it's always when you see these things now. But I think the cars are so complicated. But you still want to have a go. That's where I love sim racing, because you can have a kind of go, and it kind of feels a little bit like, of what it must be like. But it gets you maybe a bit kind of more focused as to how the drivers actually drive, and maybe you can learn a little bit more about how to, the lines for the track and those kind of things, and maybe help the focus so that you can go and have a shot in a normal single-seater and maybe do quite well.
Something that's just occurred to me is that you've got to understand there's that visceral nature of the cars as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we spoke earlier, I've seen one Grand Prix from the V10 era, and the noise was just incredible. And I've seen one Race of Champions. And now in the Race of Champions was at Wembley, and was the year David Coulthard retired. So they had the V8 cars, and they had Lewis Hamilton, and they had David Coulthard in his Red Bull doing a demonstration lap of this circuit. Now, it was spoilt. The evening was spoilt in a way because for some reason somebody at Wembley had decided they wanted to turn the PA right up and have some guy feedbacking through nonsense, talking nonsense. We'd have no idea what he said the whole evening, and you couldn't hear any of the racing cars they were using. I'm thinking it's great racing, but I wish they'd shut up and let us hear the cars. Then DC came out in the Red Bull,
and you heard that.
We were up in the gods in Wembley, in the new Wembley, and you could not hear anything but that car. To be sat in it while it's making that kind of sound, having to concentrate, as you said, on getting the clutch right, getting the tyres warm, getting the brakes warm, getting the line right, must be frightening. It must be absolutely gobsmackingly terrifying to be shaken with that level of power through your body, and then have to think, hell, I'm going to put my foot on the brake now and go around this corner. I'll probably just scream and go straight into a barrier or something like that. So, that would be amazing and frightening.
And to think they have to race, at that time, probably 20 other drivers and all of that, all the speed. So they're so far ahead. They've learned so much, have so much experience, that whole event is not nothing to them, but it's just everyday life. It's their job, isn't it?
It's like when you and I drive down a road after 20 years of driving, you don't think about what you're doing. It's automatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they've been doing it. If some of these kids have been starting in a kart from the age of 6, it's just automatic. Which is why I'm so impressed when you see a driver develop. when you see a driver change. Hamilton, when he first came in 2007, was, balls out, I'm going to win. He was fast. He was fast as anything and overtaking, and he was ballsy and arrogant and all the stuff that, that a young buck would be at the top of his game. And then over the years, when the McLaren wasn't quite as fast, I personally believe that he learned a lot off of Jenson Button. He learned tactics. He became really good at fuel saving, better than his teammate Rosberg in the same team, which to show you the fuel saving figures when in the races. And he was always better. And you're thinking, how could he be faster but use less fuel? He'd learned. He'd spent years doing these things in an automatic fashion. And I read years ago, and speaking to Jackie Stewart, talking about drivers, no one teaches them anything after they first start. That first time when they start and they're taught, that's the last time anyone teaches them anything. They all self-taught. And Jackie Stewart, I remember he took Rubens Barrichello and he mentored him. He actually trained him to be a smoother, more consistent driver. And that's when he got faster in Stewart Grand Prix team and then got recruited into Ferrari and was as fast as we all know he was. He challenged Michael Schumacher on a number of occasions consistently.
And won some spectacular Grand Prix. That one in Hockenheim. Was it Hockenheim 2000 or 2001 when he won in the rain?
Yeah, great job. And again, the rain master, he was.
Yeah.
But he changed. He improved. He was taught and he changed and he matured. Lewis has done the same. Max was a bit of a loose cannon. He still can be now and again, changing line 3 or 4 times and crashing into Raikkonen now and again. But he's exciting and he's hugely capable and he's got a good attitude in his, losing. Yeah, it's disappointing. He gets over it, moves on, next race. Thank you very much. Great attitude. That's why he's going to be a multiple world champion. It's not just his ability, raw talent. Yeah. It's that he's able to what's the word? Evolve. That's the word I'm trying to look for. He's able to evolve, isn't he?
And he's learned it with his father being in the sport, and I think he's learned at a very young age. And he's kind of grown up through all of that. And
I wonder, because there was something we were looking on Facebook the other day, wasn't there? Somebody was talking about how Jos Verstappen had come out with some stupid statement or something, and one of the comments was that he's always coming out with stupid things like that. And I just decided to put in there, maybe Max gets the talent from his mum, because you never see his mum shoot her mouth off. I think she's probably quite cool, calm, collected, and a very capable racer. So he's got both parents inputting into his character, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, it's good to see exciting drivers, because I think you've got Verstappen, you've still got Vettel, who's definitely up there. But I think I don't think he's been as interested sometimes. I think because he's had bad, the Ferraris has never quite really worked as well as it could, and their strategy has tended to be wrong. They've made major gaffes on too many occasions, which has really kind of let them down. But
it makes me cry. I'm a fan of Ross Brawn. I was never a particular fan of Schumacher. I've never been a particular fan of Ferrari. I respect the team; they're great, and it's great that they're in the sport. Ross Brawn, I thought, was amazing, and I remember the races that Schumacher won purely because of the combination of the tactics of Ross Brawn and his trust that Schumacher would deliver what he needed to do. Do this time for 5 laps, then come in, we won't mess up, out you go, you win. And now the Ferrari of today, the team, what on earth is happening? Yeah. It's like watching Keystone Cops sometimes. It's like a comedy show, and they're messing up for their drivers. How hard must it be to stay motivated when you're a 4 times world champion, everyone's criticising you, and you've got the whole of Italy on your back? I'd hate to be in this position. I mean, great. It would be great to work for Ferrari. I wouldn't say no. But, if they offer, I'm here.
It does remind me a little bit of the old days. I remember watching a video of Mansell at Ferrari in 1991. And it was done with all the big FIA build-up, the old music and stuff. And all the mechanics and the pit crew, they looked ancient. They were like in the 60s, they're all white hair. And I thought, no wonder they can't get to the car in time and get the wheels changed, because You know, they're gonna need kind of like walkers to get them there. You know, it's kind of like they're struggling to lift the tires and put them on. You know, but it was quite funny. They always had terrible problems and all sorts of stuff and reliability issues. But no, I mean, obviously it's a lot better now. Obviously, they've learned a huge amount. But you do feel that they don't quite have the strategians that they used to.
This is the question I'm asking: is it now? Because it got better under Brawn and John Todd.
Yeah.
Is it now? I've read one of my favourite books is Ross Brawn's book that he co-wrote with Adam Parr, who used to be the CEO of Williams. Total Competition.
Yeah.
Well worth a read. You learn some very interesting things, not only about Ferrari and how Ross Brawn and Jean Todt orchestrated Ferrari's resurgence by making the team a single unit.
Yeah.
Because what it was several disparate departments that were constantly infighting with each other for supremacy. You know, the engine department wouldn't talk to the chassis department because, well, we win because of Ferrari engines and
yeah, the old folklore, yeah,
fragmented, you know. And I wonder whether that's what's happened again now. The old blame game where people are at each other's throats. People criticise Mercedes, but you don't get any of that.
No.
They work as a unit.
Yeah,
whatever happens, they work as a unit.
Yeah,
that can only be a positive, you know.
Yeah. So certainly, who would you say? I mean, I know you've obviously watched Formula One for quite a long time. Do you have a kind of era that is your favourite? You know, I know obviously you're a big fan of David Coulthard, things like that. So was it the kind of V10 era that was one of your kind of favourite eras? Do you think, or what would it be?
Well, the V10 era was where I came in. I wasn't a Formula One fan. I grew up remembering Stirling Moss. So it's strange that as a child in the 70s, you think, you know, just this name, Stirling Moss.
Yeah.
James Hunt stuff and Jack Stewart. These, I think probably Stewart's era, Stewart and Jim Clark's era was you were getting the technology coming in, but it was still simple enough for you to see. You know, you'd get the car's power sliding out of a corner. You don't see that so much now. When you get a power slide, it's over in a second, and they're either in the gravel or they're okay.
Yeah.
These days, it's sort of happened in a way you could see better. It was more.
The cockpit was much more open, so you could see.
The cockpit was more open. Oh, you know, you could see what the car control was, what was happening to the car better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, definitely.
But I've got to say, as mad as it might sound, the good races this season have been cracking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you get people like Hamilton, Max, Ricciardo, you know, George Russell, Lando, it just
Norris. Yeah, he has been very good, very impressive.
He's doing a fantastic job, and everyone's talking about, you know, Lando, and he's great. But Sainz has been doing a great job as well. And you see them going past each other, and then you see another driver come up, and they can't get past them. And you think, well, they're doing. There's something special about that guy.
Yeah.
The one that's just come up behind, he can't do it. He's not managed it, you know.
Yeah, no, I think we've got a very good. The current era is actually very, very good, and I mean, it's amazing how young some of them are. But I think I think that's why the good ones really stand out. But also there is that gap. You know, you got Pierre Gasly, who's struggling. He was very good in other formulas, but I struggled. I was quite surprised when they gave him the Red Bull seat. To be honest, I thought, is he really as good as what, you know, they say? You think, you know, because I just thought there were other drivers they could have used, you know, or would have brought in. But I think he was in the driver program, so they always kind of have to use them first. But I don't think, you know, even you know, there was an issue with Daniel Kvyat, you know, when he went from Red Bull and then he went back to Toro Rosso, and then he was out of Toro Rosso, and then now he's come back and he's doing quite well. I don't know if Pierre Gasly's even that good. You know, I think he's not quite at the Formula One level, because I think there is just that gap, because most of them now are so good in there. They're, you know, such a high level that it's any kind of weakness is taken very quickly, and I think you see that with certain drivers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think any of us. They have the same problem with Ocon. You know, you're being told by the journalist how good he is, but you're looking at the results on on the screen of the television you're watching, you're thinking, well, can I see that? Can I see that? With Max, we've been spoilt in a way, and with Lewis, because we've seen the results. We've seen outstanding driving. We've seen, the Brazil race in the wet where he's carving around the outside of people for Max. You can see it. But we're seeing Lando do a really good job in the McLaren. We're seeing Russell taking that poor old Williams. Bless Williams. I love Williams. I've always loved it. They were my original team. They're where my heart lie, if you like. And to see George Russell do such a good job in it, you can see that. But the likes of Gasly, did I see it? I didn't see anything. He was okay. He was good. But like you say, so was Kvyat. So was the other drivers around him were also good.
Yeah, I just don't think he got quite the edge. Whether it's confidence or just that, because he was more than half a second off Verstappen on a lot of qualifying laps, and that's a huge amount of time to be away from
stuff like that. There seems to be a problem with the Red Bull team, which I like. I like Red Bull, but there seems to be that when they've got a number one driver that they like, their teammate always suffers. Kvyat did.
Yeah. Mark Webber. Look at that. Mark Webber and
Webber had the strength of character for it that he still took the race to Vettel. And Ricardo, I don't know whether it's an Australian thing. They don't care. So he took the race to Vettel and he beat him.
Yeah.
But I think he got sick and tired. People, why did he go to Renault? I think he got sick and tired of being number two fiddle when he'd done so well, when he's such a good racer. So he wanted to go somewhere where he was going to be taken seriously.
It would be great to see Ricardo in a better car, like at Mercedes or because I think Bottas could potentially lose his seat. And, I don't think Bottas has been quite so good this year. And I wonder if he might lose his seat. And then it'd be great to get somebody like Ricardo in there. I think he'd be a very good teammate to Hamilton because he would have a lot of fun. I think he'd be quite a,
enjoy their racing, don't they?
Yeah. And
but only one person can win. So you've got to enjoy your racing or you're not.
You're not going to enjoy F1 at all. No. That
would be a dream team to me, actually. I like Bottas. I've liked Bottas when he was in Williams. He's been better this year, but then he dropped off again. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's a fast guy. He's a fast racer, but he's not Hamilton.
Yeah.
For all the criticism Hamilton's got something.
Yeah.
He's got that little extra something.
Mm.
And on the days when he's not so good, he's still good.
Yeah.
On his off days, he's still good.
Well, that was the thing. I remember when he won in Fuji. I think was it 2008? I think it was in the wet when it was that incredible wet race, and I think they spent the first 20 laps under the safety car, and then everyone else. Alonso crashed. Webber and was taken out by Vettel in the Toro Rosso, which didn't help. That was his sister team. And I remember when he crossed the line and he finally won it. And Martin Brundle said, with that performance, he deserves to win the World Championship on that performance alone. But he said that was something spectacular. And so he did. There was no doubt watching him race on those kind of incredible tracks and incredible conditions. He had something. He lit up the British crowd. I think it was like a Mansell again or a Senna again. It was that similar kind of people could really get behind him and kind of they were rooting for him. So it's and when he won at Silverstone in 2008 in the wet, that was an incredible race. We were all spinning off and it was magnificent. It was quite an incredible.
Down roads and down the track, I should say.
Yeah.
I remember that was one hell of a race. Hell of a race. But again, people keep. We were talking earlier about the there's a lot of talk about how they need to fix Formula One. They don't need to fix Formula One. Formula One isn't broken.
Yeah.
There's some dodgy tracks that don't suit the cars.
Yeah.
France. What is that about? The Paul Ricard circuit. It's a bit. What do they call it? A car park. It just looks like a big car park with paint on it.
Yeah.
It's not a track. It's just a big chunk of tarmac.
I'm not even sure if Hockenheim now is any good either. I like the old track was amazing.
Was brilliant.
Yeah.
I was at the Ostkurve, the only F1 race I've seen live, to my shame. And we were at the Ostkurve right at the end of that long straight. And with the V10 era, where you could, if you were a mile away, you could tell when a McLaren Mercedes was driving past because it had that howl.
Yeah.
All the other incredible engines just sounded normal.
Yeah.
compared with this howl as it went past. And I'd like to point out that Mercedes engine's British. It's not Mercedes. I
Yeah, it was
didn't call it
Ilmore, wasn't it? It was Ilmore. Yeah.
Ilmore, and it still is Ilmore because they bought Ilmore when I can't remember his name, but one of the founding members and owner died. Mercedes bought it and it became AMG.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all of it. It became part of AMG. So yes, it's a Mercedes engine, but it's still British. And just watching them come down from over 220 mile an hour and breaking into that little chicane and then woof back out again. And they don't have that now. They don't have that now.
And they've taken away all the track. I remember watching one of those ones that was Ted's Notebook, and when he went to Jim Clark's gravestone, or the memorial stone, and then he was walking through high grass because they've completely they took all the old track away, and they've let it go back kind of to its kind of natural kind of bit of
stream down the side on the other side of the fence, because that's the way you walk back when you're coming from the Os curve. And it's a bit like bits of Silverstone where there's no grandstands. People just sit on the grass.
Yeah,
and that's so it's all in the middle of this incredible forest.
Yeah.
So it was weird. It was like finding this road in the middle of a forest in the middle of nowhere. That suddenly 20 cars would do 220 mile an hour down past you while you sat on the grass having a beer. It was fantastic, and a bockwurst, you know.
Yeah.
So that Jim Clark curve, that headstone, I stood there with a tear in my eye because one of the greatest, if not the greatest, racing driver.
Yeah, no, amazing guy, really, wasn't it? Oh.
Wow, what he could do with the car, I wish I could do with anything.
Well, my father had a funny story about Jim Clark because he was around at the time. You see, he was a doctor in the local area, and when he was driving up to Edinburgh one night, and my father had an old Ford Cortina, not the Lotus Cortina that Jim Clark would have, but it was the Ford, or maybe it was a Lotus Cortina, I can't quite remember, but it was a Ford, or Ford of its type for that time, and he thought he was getting on driving up over the E68 and heading on the road up to Edinburgh, thinking he was doing rather well, and then all of a sudden this car overtook him from nowhere, and he just saw that, and he recognised it was Jim Clark who overtook him. So that was the thing,
Fine. Well, back in the early 90s, right at the beginning, one of my favourite television programmes that was ever made about motorsport was called The Power and the Glory. I don't know if you remember
that. I remember watching that, yeah.
13 half-hour programmes celebrating 100 years of motor racing. I had it on video. You couldn't get it on DVD. There was a book. A really well-made documentary. And one of them was called The Right Stuff, and it was about the drivers,
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And they were interviewing, I think, Jackie Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie Oliver, he was young and just starting in Formula One, and he was at the Nürburgring, the old Nürburgring. That lies with 13.9 miles of track. You've got to learn all of a sudden, and if you come off, you hit a tree and you die. So, Jim Clark, decent guy, said, "Follow me, I'll show you the lines."
Goodness.
And Jackie Oliver says, so I was following him for about 4 laps, and I was keeping up with him, doing okay. He says, I thought I was getting quite pleased with myself. I was doing all right. I'm keeping up with Jim Clark. He said, Jim must have got bored then, because all of a sudden, bang, he'd gone 2 corners later. I couldn't see him anymore. And he just, wow. This Jackie Oliver was a Formula One driver. He wasn't your local taxi driver. He was one of the 20 best drivers in the world. And Jim Clark made him look like he was in a pram in one of the most difficult circuits on the planet. Just so good. And they all said when he died, if Jim Clark can die, anyone can die, because they all knew he was Jackie Stewart, 3 times world champion. His win rate in Formula One was incredible. His speed was incredible. Jackie Stewart we're talking about. Well, we know how good Jackie Stewart is. His understanding of car control and of the physics of it is amazing. And he says himself that the best driver in the world was Jim Clark. He was his best, and he knew that he was so much better than he was.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I know Ayrton Senna came to the old Jim Clark room way back in the early 90s. Because he's a big fan of Jim Clark. Yeah, Senna was a big fan of Jim Clark. Yeah, no, it was quite interesting, the things he had to say about him. And I think just, I mean, and Senna was an incredible driver. Well, I have to say, one of my favourites. It's when I saw him, the race I saw was at Donington in 1993, and I saw him win there, and that was just amazing. But it was also listening to, watching his videos and his interviews and his life outside of Formula One. They were really good videos at those times. And you get them with Mansell and others, and they were just so interesting because they were about his real life, and they gave kind of very down to earth stories. They would answer any question that they were asked, and it was, I think they were very personable. So you kind of made a connection with the driver in those days, where I think now it's not the same. They're kind of distanced away.
It's the corporate thing, isn't it? There's so much money involved in it. It's a huge sport. I mean, it's great that it's so popular and it's so huge, but I miss that humanity. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about some of the in-car comments and some of the things, when Vettel, when he comes out with the odd swear word, and when Raikkonen. The reason why everyone likes Raikkonen so much is because he doesn't care. If he doesn't want to answer a question, he'll go, I'm not telling you, I get stuff. And that's what we need more of. We need less polish and more reality. People, these are real people. I want to see their weaknesses. I like it when Max gets angry with someone and screams at them. I used to like it when Alonso used to say that it was like a pedal car going down a road or something like that.
Or GP2 engine.
It might upset somebody in Japan, but it pleases the rest of the world. It
made them work, because this year, my goodness, Honda have improved. I
want to know there must be something about McLaren that the relationship.
I think so much pressure on them to try and perform. They were so used to performing at the high levels, and then they struggled with the new engine. But the biggest mistake was leaving Honda at that time. They should have just let it go another year or two. It was going to work. And now Red Bull, I mean, I really thought, well, taking that Honda engine was a big risk, but I thought, no, it's going to pay, because they've had that experience now, and they're almost there. But,
I mean, they've got Adrian Newey. I've read, he's written his book, which is kind of an autobiography, but because he's a nerd, a wonderful, beautiful nerd, because nerds run the world, as we should know. It's how to build a car. And it's full of engineering and technical drawings and stuff like that. And in it, you get to understand how he works and how the teams he's worked with work and how Red Bull work and what's different about it. Why David Coulthard? There's a spoof website called Sniff Petrol. I don't know if you know it.
No, I've not heard of that one. No,
Sniff Petrol. I recommend Sniff Petrol. It's not a commercial site. It was written anonymously for years, and it turns out that one of the Evo car magazine journalists did it as a sort of gag, because it takes the mick out of car journalism in some very unusual ways. It's funny. Well, at one point, when DC went to Red Bull and had this revitalised David Coulthard, that was the David Coulthard I've always loved. He wasn't this sort of one-dimensional character. He's an incredibly funny guy. He's a really nice guy. He's so fast. He really is. He's a good racer. He was good at overtaking. He evolved over his career. That's why I respect the guy. And then he gets in a Red Bull. Everyone thinks he's finished, and he's carving past people again, like they're standing still. And it's like, who is this guy? Well, on this website, they call him the Crazy Dave Coulthard. Am I allowed to swear on this? I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this.
Well, if it's just once.
The new something, Crazy Dave coming at you with a flavour of Red Bull. And the picture was him with this sort of, Red Bull cap low down over his eyes, looking dodgy. But it was fantastic. And that's what Red Bull did, didn't they? They came in and they were fun, and they had a positive attitude towards everything. It was about having a laugh while winning, because they took the Jaguar team, which was,
no.
do things, ruled by committee, because they took an incredible team, Jackie and Paul Stewart's team,
Yeah.
came into Formula One, telling everybody, well, we're not going to be winning anything for a long time. And they got, was it the first race they got points?
Yeah, they did incredibly well. Yeah.
That shows how to run a team.
Aye.
Jaguar comes along, shows how not to run a team.
Yeah.
Red Bull come along and has to re-put it back together again. And look at them now. They make incredibly fast cars, and they have people like Max Verstappen driving for them. You know, brilliant.
No, it's quite a thing, isn't it? I always remember. I mean, for enthusiasts like yourself and you know, it's the kind of the charisma of all the different drivers, and then obviously the commentators as well when you hear them. And I remember going back to Damon Hill in those eras of that time in 95, 96, there was a great race at Monza in 96 when it was Hill's kind of championship winning year. This was the big time when he was supposed to said, oh, maybe it was 95, I can't try to remember exactly. And John Alesi, and I think it was in the Ferrari, he was driving in the Ferrari at that time, came from 6th, I think it was, on the grid to 1st by the first Monza chicane. And then the thing is, they had this great shot panning to the team, and I think it was Damon Hill's engineer, who was, you know, had the headphones on, and he basically said, where the hell did he come from? You know, and it was like, because he outdid the whole thing. And then Murray Walker said, and John Alesi has had one of those mesmerable starts, you know, coming from 6th on the grid to lead in Monza in a Ferrari. This is incredible, you know.
They went nuts, didn't they? Isn't that the one where he didn't break down the car? So he didn't win?
Something happened. He didn't win the race, I don't think. No, he definitely, because Alesi only won in Canada. So I think he broke down.
It really was.
But,
that when Berger was his teammate, wasn't it?
Yeah, the last year he drove for Ferrari, and then they swapped to Benetton.
Berger's another one of these people, a bit like Niki Lauda, the great Niki Lauda, who I've always been a big fan of as well, because, oh man, I mean, you don't come back. I didn't like the film Rush. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, because it painted Niki Lauda as a slow driver that could set up a car right. You don't win 3 world championships as a slow driver. You just don't.
Yeah. You've got to be super quick.
How long you set up a car? If you're slower, you're slower. You know. And he would have been a 4 times world champion. He came back. Was it 84? He won his 3rd world championship. That's after retiring. Came back.
Yeah.
And Prost, who everybody thinks is one of the greatest drivers that has lived.
Yeah.
The guy was amazing. But the thing that everyone loved about him is that there's a spade, that's a spade. And, you know, his emotions, he just let them out. He said what was on his mind, and you saw the real man. You heard his real opinion. It was real passion, real love for the sport, and real reaction. You know, when he thought someone had done something wrong, he'd call him an idiot.
Yeah.
And then if he found out he was wrong, he would say, I was wrong. You know, he was honest. I loved it. Everyone loved it. That's why he had so much respect, as well as his career and as well as coming back from near death, driving in races with blood pouring down his face and this kind of stuff. As well as that, he also had that human side, which we're missing, I think, in Formula One. If we're missing anything in Formula One, it's that human side of people being shown all the time.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, isn't it? Well, it's been phenomenal. I'm just thinking for our listeners tonight, they've had at least 45 minutes of epic armchair Formula One chat, and I think that's exactly what Formula One is all about. This is why people are so passionate about it. You know, we can remember particular races, we can remember our favourite drivers, and for all our listeners, if you've got questions or you would like us to bring up and talk about a topic, you can email us at podcast@cardealadvisor.co.uk, and we will read your emails, and hopefully we will actually answer them, and we will even bring up the topic that you would like us to talk about. But this is what it's all about. Sorry, on the car sim and race driver show. That's the problem with doing too many podcasts. You get confused about what the names of them are. But yes, you can give us an email at podcast@cardealadvisor.co.uk, and we will mention you in our next show. And but it's been fascinating just talking there with you, Andrew, for the last wee while, and this is what it's all about. kind of remembering the great races, enjoying what is a fantastic sport. And I think, yes, I mean, my greatest kind of annoyance of Formula One is the new engines. I'm not a massive fan of the V6 turbos. I preferred the V8s. I think just it was the noise, because when you hear the difference between the two, now they are a bit noisier this year. They're a bit better. But when you hear the V8s of 2013, my goodness me, it just excites you. It's music to your ears. It is kind of incredible. And 19,000 RPM. It's amazing. But there is something about the sport. We just love it, and we want it to work, and we want it to get faster and closer and more exciting, and eventually, hopefully, see more races live as well. But it's been fascinating. What I'll do, I'll end the podcast there for our listeners, but I'll be talking to you in a few minutes after I've stopped the show. So stay exactly where you are, and we'll have a chat. But to all our listeners of the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, you've been listening to Hugh Hat-Trick and my very special guest, Andrew Marr. Take care and drive fast and try not to crash. And we'll see you next week. At cardioadvisor.co.uk, we can help you save thousands of pounds on your next new car or van. And we can also source second-hand cars as well. And we can save you money on car rental, whether it be in the UK and abroad. Just click our rental link on the website. And we'll give you a free gift if you trade in your car with We Buy Any Car using our special website link. So go to the website now and see how much you can save. And it's back to the show. Thanks for listening.